It's hard to believe how quickly everything can change. One moment, a family is holding on to their dreams, fighting to stay together against the odds, and the next, it feels like the world they built is slipping through their fingers. If you followed the Brown family for any length of time, you know exactly what I mean. The story that started as a bold experiment in love and faith has now become something so much heavier, so much more real, and honestly, so much more heartbreaking than anyone could have predicted. The laughter, the chaos, the endless family meetings, suddenly all of that feels like a distant memory. Now we're left with a family scattered across the country, a father who's lost his way, and a tragedy that no one saw coming. Hi, friends, I'm Oliva, and you're watching TLC's Sister Wives Secret. If you care about the truth behind the headlines, you're in the right place. Please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments how you're feeling about everything that's happened. I want to hear your thoughts, your heartbreak, your questions, because honestly, I think we're all still trying to process what we've witnessed. Tonight, we're talking about Kody Brown, the man who once believed he could hold four marriages together under one roof. We're talking about Janelle, the steady force who's shown more strength than anyone could have imagined. Christine, who finally chose her own happiness. Meri, who spent years hoping for a miracle that never came. Robyn, the last wife standing. And of course, Garrison, whose loss has left a hole in this family that can never be filled. The question on everyone's mind is simple, but the answer is anything but. Is this really the end of Sister Wives? And if it is, what does that mean for the Browns and for all of us who've watched their journey from the very beginning? When Sister Wives first hit our screens, it was unlike anything reality TV had ever shown. Here was Kody Brown, a man with four wives, Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn, willing to put their lives on display for the world to see. They weren't just sharing a home, they were sharing a vision, a belief that their way of life could work, even in the face of judgment and misunderstanding. The Browns wanted to prove that polygamy wasn't just about one man and multiple women, it was about family, faith, and building something bigger than themselves. In those early seasons, you could feel the hope. There were family dinners with laughter echoing through the house, kids running up and down the stairs, and late-night talks where the wives leaned on each other for support. They faced legal threats, public outrage, and endless questions from strangers, but they stood together, determined to show the world that their love was real. But as the seasons rolled on, the cracks started to show. Living under one roof with so many personalities, so many needs, and so many dreams was never going to be easy. Jealousy crept in, especially as Kody's attention shifted from one wife to another. Christine, who always wanted to feel special, struggled with feeling overlooked. Janelle, the practical one, tried to keep the peace, but even she couldn't ignore the growing tension. Meri, Kody's first wife, found herself more and more isolated, her relationship with Kody growing colder with every passing year. And then there was Robyn, the newest wife, whose arrival changed the family dynamic forever. Some of the kids felt left out, and the other wives couldn't help but notice how much time Kody spent with her. The turning point came with the catfishing scandal. Meri, desperate for connection, started an online relationship that turned out to be a cruel deception. The fallout was brutal, trust was shattered, not just between Meri and Kody, but across the entire family. Suddenly, secrets were out in the open, and old wounds were impossible to ignore. The unity that once defined the Browns began to unravel. Arguments became more frequent, and the once solid foundation of their family started to crumble. The show that began as a celebration of love and togetherness was now revealing just how fragile those bonds could be. And as the seasons continued, it became clear that the Browns were no longer fighting the world. They were fighting each other. Christine quote. This decision to leave was the moment everything changed. For years, she tried to make it work, always putting on a brave face for the cameras and her children. But behind the scenes, Christine was struggling. She wanted to feel loved, valued, and chosen, not just another name in a long list of wives. The breaking point came when she realized Kody wasn't willing to fight for their marriage. He admitted on camera that he no longer wanted an intimate relationship with her, and that honesty, as painful as it was, set Christine free. She packed her things, said goodbye to the only life she'd known for decades, and moved to Utah to start over. Watching her drive away, you could see the pain in her eyes, but also a sense of relief. Christine's courage inspired so many viewers who saw themselves in her story, people who stayed too long, hoping things would change, only to realize they deserved more. Janelle's journey was quieter but just as powerful. She'd always been the practical one, the steady hand who kept the family running. But as the years went by, even Janelle couldn't ignore the growing distance between her and Kody. The pandemic made everything worse. Kody's strict rules and his refusal to compromise drove a wedge between him and his older children, especially Garrison and Gabriel. Janelle found herself caught in the middle, trying to protect her kids while also holding on to what was left of her marriage. In the end, she chose her children. She moved out, focused on her own happiness, and started building a life that didn't revolve around Kody's approval. Janelle's independence was a quiet revolution, and it showed just how much she'd grown. Meri's story is the one that breaks your heart. She was Kody's first wife, the one who helped build this family from the ground up. But over the years, her relationship with Kody became almost non-existent. The catfishing scandal left deep scars, and no matter how hard she tried, Meri couldn't find her way back. She held on for years, hoping for a miracle, clinging to the idea that things could go back to the way they were. But eventually, even Meri had to accept the truth. She announced her separation from Kody, closing the door on a chapter that had defined her entire adult life. And then there was Robyn, the last wife standing. With Christine, Janelle, and Meri gone, Robyn found herself alone with Kody, the dream of a big united family shattered. The dynamic shifted completely. What was once a bustling, chaotic household became quiet and tense. Robyn, who had always wanted sister wives, was left with a reality she never asked for, a monogamous marriage built on the ruins of a broken dream. Kody Brown's transformation over the years has been nothing short of dramatic. In the early days, he was the center of the family, full of energy and conviction, convinced that he could balance the needs and emotions of 4 wives and a dozen kids. He was always talking about love, faith, and the importance of family unity. But as the years passed, the weight of his choices and the consequences of his actions started to show. The confident, sometimes even cocky patriarch we first met began to look tired, frustrated, and at times completely lost. The endless arguments, the heartbreak of watching his marriages fall apart one by one, and the growing distance from his children all took their toll. You could see it in his eyes during those later episodes. He was no longer the man who believed he could keep everyone together. Kody's public statements in the most recent season were a turning point. He admitted without any sugarcoating that he would never pursue plural marriage again. He called it a hassle, a burden he no longer wanted to carry. For someone who once preached the virtues of polygamy, this was a stunning admission. It was as if he was finally letting go of the dream that had defined his entire adult life. The man who once saw himself as the leader of a grand experiment was now just trying to pick up the pieces of what was left. This shift didn't just affect Kody, it changed the entire premise of Sister Wives. The show was built on the idea of a big, unconventional family, navigating the challenges of polygamy together. With only Robyn left, and Kody openly rejecting the lifestyle, the heart of the show was gone. The Browns were no longer a symbol of unity and resilience. Instead, they became a family marked by loss, regret, and the search for new beginnings. For fans, it was a painful but honest look at what happens when a dream falls apart. Nothing could have prepared anyone for the loss of Garrison Brown. Even after years of watching the Browns weather every kind of storm, this was something different, something that shook the family and the audience to the core. Garrison, Janelle and Kody's son, was always the one with a quick smile and a stubborn streak. He was fiercely independent, sometimes clashing with his dad, especially during the pandemic, when Kody's strict rules drove a wedge between them. The tension was real, and it played out in front of the cameras for everyone to see. Garrison wanted his own life, his own space, and he wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even if it meant butting heads with Kody. But behind the scenes, Garrison was struggling in ways that weren't always obvious. The news of Garrison's death hit like a punch to the gut. The episode where Janelle got the call from Gabriel, telling her that Garrison was gone, was almost too painful to watch. There was no dramatic music, no editing tricks, just raw, unfiltered grief. Janelle's face crumpled as she tried to process the words. She had always been the strong one, the mom who held everything together, but in that moment she was just a mother who had lost her son. What stood out, though, was how Janelle handled the aftermath. She didn't lash out or look for someone to blame. Instead, she focused on honoring Garrison's memory and supporting her other children, especially Gabriel, who was the one to find his brother. Janelle's compassion and strength were on full display. She talked openly about Garrison's struggles, about the ups and downs, and about how the family had tried to help him. She didn't sugarcoat the pain, but she also didn't let it turn into bitterness. For Kody, the loss was a different kind of agony. He admitted on camera that he was haunted by guilt, replaying every conversation, every argument, every missed opportunity to make things right with Garrison. Kody's grief was tangled up with regret, and you could see him struggling to find the words. He talked to Robyn about the what-ifs, about wishing he'd had more time, about the things he wished he'd done differently. It was clear that the distance between him and Garrison in those final months weighed heavily on him. Gabriel, too, was visibly shaken. He had always been close to Garrison, and being the one to discover his brother's body was a trauma that no one should have to bear. The siblings rallied around each other, sending messages, making calls, trying to hold each other up in the darkest moment of their lives. The show didn't shy away from showing the family's pain. There were scenes of Meri and Christine breaking down in tears, of Robyn trying to comfort Kody, of Janelle sitting quietly with her children, just trying to get through the day. The grief was real, and it was shared by everyone who had ever watched the Browns grow up on TV. But as the dust settled, a difficult question started to surface: should sister wives continue after something like this? Is it fair to ask a family to keep living their lives in front of the cameras after such a devastating loss? Some fans wanted closure, a chance to say goodbye, while others felt it was time to let the Browns grieve in private. The tragedy of Garrison's death changed everything. It wasn't just another storyline, it was a reminder that these are real people, with real pain, and sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is give them space to heal. Now, as the dust settles and the cameras fade, the Brown family stands at a crossroads that feels both inevitable and heartbreaking. The once bustling homes are quiet now, the laughter and chaos replaced by long silences and separate lives. Christine has found a new sense of happiness in Utah, building a life that's finally her own. Janelle is focused on her independence, her children, and the simple joys she's rediscovering outside the shadow of polygamy. Meri is exploring who she is beyond the label of first wife, taking small but meaningful steps toward healing. Even Robyn, who once dreamed of a big united family, is left with a reality she never wanted: just her and Kody, surrounded by memories of what used to be. Kody himself seems like a man changed by loss, regret, and the weight of everything that's happened. The family is no longer a single unit. They're scattered across states, each person trying to find their own version of peace. The bonds that once held them together have loosened, and the dream that brought them to TV in the first place has faded into something unrecognizable. Meanwhile, TLC has stayed quiet about the future of Sister Wives. There's no official word on whether the show will return, and honestly, it feels like everyone is holding their breath. Behind the scenes, there are whispers about a new show, Poly Family, focused on other polygamous families who are still living the lifestyle the Browns have left behind. It's a sign that the network is ready to move on, even if the fans aren't. For those of us who have watched every tear, every fight, and every moment of hope, it's a strange feeling. Is this really the end? Or is it just the beginning of something new, for the Browns and for all of us who have followed their journey? Looking back, it's impossible to ignore just how much Sister Wives changed the conversation about family in America. For over a decade, the Browns invited us into their living rooms, their kitchens, and their most private struggles. They challenged the idea of what a family could look like, and whether you agreed with their choices or not, you couldn't help but be drawn in by their honesty, their messiness, and their resilience. We watched as they faced judgment from the outside world, but also from each other. We saw moments of real love, but also heartbreak, jealousy, and the kind of pain that comes from wanting to belong. Through it all, the Browns showed us that family isn't just about blood or tradition, it's about the choices we make, the forgiveness we offer, and the courage it takes to start over when everything falls apart. As your host, I have to admit, this story has gotten under my skin in ways I never expected. There were times I cheered for Christine as she found her voice, and times I felt frustrated with Kody's stubbornness. I've cried for Janelle's heartbreak, and I've felt the weight of Meri's loneliness. And like so many of you, I was absolutely gutted by Garrison's loss. These aren't just reality TV characters, they're real people, and their pain is real. That's why I want to hear from you. How has this journey changed the way you think about family, about forgiveness, about starting over? Please share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to TLC's Sister Wives Secret for more honest conversations like this one. As we say goodbye to the Browns, at least for now, I hope we can all carry a little bit of their story with us. The courage to be honest, the strength to walk away when you need to, and the hope that even after the hardest losses, there's still a chance for new beginnings. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for caring. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.